Hello, join me as I take on the challenge of loving my enemies and turning the other cheek. Let's see how that goes. So, the concept of loving one's enemies and turning the other cheek is one that comes from Luke chapter 6, verse 27. And it says, "But to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. If someone slaps you on one cheek, turn to them the other also. If someone takes your coat, do not withhold your shirt from them." Now, this verse is about loving your enemies and doing good to those who hate you. It also talks about turning the other cheek and not withholding your shirt from someone who takes your coat. And even the teachings of Socrates, this idea has been presented as a key to breaking free from the cycle of hatred and violence. We've all been in situations where someone was wronged, and our natural response is to want to lash out, right? To defend ourselves and fight back. Well, it's hard to love those who hurt us, who betray us, or who seek to do harm. We might even feel that loving our enemies is somehow condoning their behavior, or that it's a sign of weakness. But what if I told you that it's actually a sign of strength, that it takes more courage to love than to hate? One of the biggest challenges we face when trying to practice love and forgiveness is our own ego, right? We want to be right, we want to win, we want to prove a point. And so we get stuck in this cycle of anger and resentment, and we're unable to let go. Another challenge is the fear of being taken advantage of. If we love our enemies, won't they take advantage of us? Won't they just keep hurting us? And what about justice? Don't need to stand up for ourselves and fight for what's rightfully ours? But what if I told you that loving our enemies doesn't mean we have to be doormats? It doesn't mean we have to let people walk all over us. It means we choose to respond differently, to respond with love, with compassion, with understanding. It means we choose to see the humanity in our enemies, to see that they too are struggling, that they too are hurting. Throughout history, there have been many examples of people who have chosen to love their enemies, who have chosen to turn the other cheek. Martin Luther King Jr. is a great example. Despite facing violent opposition from those who sought to maintain segregation and oppression, King continued to preach a message of love and nonviolence. And in the end, it was this message that helped bring about transformative change. Another great example is Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison for his fight against apartheid in South Africa. When he was finally released, he could have sought revenge. He could have sought to punish those who had wronged him, right? But instead, he chose to forgive. He chose love. And it was this choice that helped bring about reconciliation and healing in his country. I've personally experienced the power of loving my enemies in my own life. There was a time when someone I trusted betrayed me in a very deep way, and my initial response was anger, hurt, and desire for revenge. But as I began to practice forgiveness, as I began to choose to love this person, I started to see the humanity in them. I started to see that they too were struggling, that they too were hurting, and it was in that moment that I was able to let go of my anger, to let go of my resentment. One of the most compelling stories I've come across is that of a woman named Maria Espinosa, who was kidnapped and held hostage by the Colombian guerrilla group FARC. Despite being held captive for 6 years, despite being subjected to physical and emotional abuse, Maria chose to forgive her captors. She chose to love them, to see the humanity in them, and it was this choice that helped her to survive. That helped her to heal, right? The transformative power of loving our enemies is undeniable. And it was the power to break cycles of violence, to bring about reconciliation, and to bring healing to individuals and communities. It's not always easy. It's not always comfortable, but it's always worth it. In conclusion, loving your enemies and turning the other cheek is not just some lofty idea. It's a practical tool that can bring about real change in all of our lives, in the world around us. So let's try it. Let's see how it goes. Let's choose to love. Let's choose to forgive. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions on this topic or thoughts, please share them in the comments below. If you want to dive deeper into this topic, check out my video on the power of forgiveness. It's linked in the description box below. God bless you. Have a great day.